So what the heck is ghost riding a bike and why would you want to do it? Ghost riding for bikes is transporting two bikes at once by riding one of them one-handed and holding the other one by the stem. Maybe you need to bring a bike to a friend, or you need to pick someone up and you're both going to ride back together. Whatever the case, ghost riding could be a useful skill in the right situation. So just some quick terminology for this tutorial. We're going to call this bike the main bike. This is the one I'm actually sitting on and riding. And this other one we'll call the transport bike. This is the one I'm holding by my side. I find it's easier to ghost ride if your main bike is a similar or slightly smaller size than the transport bike. This is because you don't need to reach as far up or down. Before we start learning, you need to decide which side you want to hold the transport bike, left or right. There are advantages and disadvantages to both. Holding it on the right means you have your left hand on the bars. This means you have access to the front brake, which gives you more stopping power since you can only use one brake while ghost riding. But holding on the left means you'll get access to the rear shifter, which means you get more granularity while shifting. Shifting with only the chain rings in the front can be kinda sketchy. Some of it is up to personal preference. I'm personally more comfortable riding one-handed using my left hand, but ultimately the choice is up to you. This part may seem silly, but the foundation of ghost riding is getting comfortable holding the transport bike the right way. This is not like walking a bike how many people do it, like this, or even like this, or maybe even like this. But instead we're going to grab the stem, which is this part right here, and we're just going to walk. Practice doing shallow turns, sharp turns, uphills, and downhills. Focus on not putting too much weight on the bike, just enough to keep it steady and steer. Also, try lifting the front tire up off the ground slightly. This will be useful later if the transport bike ever gets unstable at speed. Now this step might seem unnecessary, but if you've never walked a bike this way, make sure you're really comfortable doing this. 5, maybe 10 minutes of this should be plenty. We're going to start by grabbing your main bike. If you're just learning how to ride one-handed, I recommend you start on level or even slightly downhill ground. Bring your seat lower than usual so you can easily mount and dismount the bike. Again, we're going to practice all kinds of turns, so shallow turns, sharp turns, U-turns, left turns, and right turns. Practice braking on an uphill and a downhill, and make sure you can reliably mount and dismount the bike without using your other hand. If you're new to one-handed riding, spend at least a good 15 to 20 minutes doing this. We're finally ready to start ghost riding. We're first just going to get a feel for how ghost riding works. Find some level or slight downhill ground to start and make sure you have plenty of forward space. Put your main bike into a fairly low gear to begin. Bring your transport bike close to your main bike, but not so close that the bars could touch. Mount the main bike and hold the stem of the transport bike, and push off. Hopefully you haven't crashed yet. Like I said, we're just getting a feel for how it works. Just go forward a bit and then stop. Then we'll turn around and do it again. We're going to do this a couple of times. And I emphasize this because I find that starting and stopping is the hardest part, at least for me. Once you're comfortable going in a straight line, try making turns. Make shallow turns, sharp turns, left turns, right turns, and U-turns. Then you can try going uphill and downhill. Heavy pedaling at high speed is always tricky, so take it slowly. So throughout ghost riding, make sure you limit how much you're leaning on the transport bike. You should really only grip it hard enough to hold and steer it. When you put too much weight on the transport bike, it could become a real problem if it becomes unstable for whatever reason. Speaking of instability, this happens sometimes when you get up to speed, and you should be prepared for it. I mentioned earlier that you should know how to lift the front wheel of the transport bike up a bit. This is the time when you'll do it. You'll feel it. The transport bike will want to lean left and right and left and right. Resist the urge to grip it tighter. Instead, lift the front wheel up and it'll self-correct. Then you can gently return it back to the ground. After you're comfortable with all of that, you should be good to go. Get some good practice in and you should be able to ghost ride a bike to anywhere you want. That's all for this time, and I hope you found this tutorial helpful. Bye!